Good evening, brethren. Tonight we're going to continue with Hanok. In chapter 31, verse 1 says, After these things, beyond those mountains, towards the northeast of them, I was shown 7 other mountains, replete with pure nard, uh, or odoriferous trees, cardamom, and pepper. From there I continue eastward beyond all those mountains, far from them, to the east of the earth. So, well, this according to the title. However, of course, the title wasn't there, but it is the interpretation of the translator. Um, he was taken to Eden, the paradise. So, after these things, beyond those mountains, towards the northeast of them, I was shown 7 other mountains. Those 7 mountains were mentioned in the previous chapter. That's why I thought we had read this one already. Replete with pure nard, fragrant trees, odoriferous trees, cardamom, and pepper. From there, I continued eastwards beyond all those mountains, far from them, to the east of the earth, and I was carried over to the Sea of Reeds. The Sea of Reeds is what came to be known as the Red Sea, what parted during the time of the Exodus. And I was distanced far beyond it. I passed over the darkness far from it, along above the Malach Zateel, and was carried beside the Pardes, paradise, the garden of righteousness, and trees within it were shown to me from afar. Trees excessive in number and large, different from each other. I saw one tree that was different from all of the rest, very large, beautiful, and magnificent. I saw one tree that was different from all the rest, very large, beautiful, and magnificent. The tree of knowledge, of which if anyone eats, he becomes endowed with great wisdom. This is interesting because normally, because of Christianity mostly, and perhaps even a little bit of Judaism, since they don't accept the book of Enoch, amongst other books, like the Gnostic books, the tree of knowledge is seen as something bad, evil, because it was through it that evil entered this reality. But evil entered this reality because Adam and Eve disobeyed the Almighty. So it was because of disobedience that evil entered this reality, but it was needed because we needed to know what evil is so that we would choose through free will given to us by the Almighty the good, the Almighty, so that we would love Yahweh and not evil. So it is interesting that it says that the tree of knowledge gives great wisdom. Remember also that it is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the tree of knowledge was pretty much given through the Torah. For in the Torah, or the 5 books written by Moshe, we are told what is good to death. So the tree of life is Mashiach, for he came and gave his life on a tree, on a wooden cross, to become the tree of life, so that if we believe in him and eat of him through our faith, we receive eternal life. The second manifestation of the Almighty is the one connected with the tree of knowledge. That's why Adam and Eve ate of the tree of knowledge right after they were made, according to what we see in Genesis, for they were made on the 6th day, and we are coming to the 7th millennium, meaning the spiritual Shabbat, the heavenly Shabbat. So we are ending, we're approaching the year 6000. So the end of the sixth day. So that means that the world will eat most sadly, of the of that which the enemy will give them, pretty much the mark of the beast, which will condemn them forever. And then the those who believe in the Most High, the many through death will receive justification, for they believe in the tree of life, Mashiach. Yet the few who accept the true doctrine given through the two witnesses, of whom the witness like Moshe would represent the tree of knowledge, for Moshe wrote the Torah, where we find the knowledge of good and evil. So the witness like Moshe, who would be received or accepted by the chosen few, would be the tree of knowledge. So the chosen few would get the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good, the knowledge of Yahweh who is good. But the fact that is the knowledge of good and evil has to do, amongst other things, with the fact that the last comes as the prodigal son. So the tree of knowledge was eaten in paradise. Then Yahweh revealed it through the 5 books written by Moshe. And the knowledge that is given there is that because of our sin, we deserve death. So that's why is also knowledge of evil, knowledge of that which is bad. Because another point regarding that, which is very important, is that, well, in Judaism, it is said that the tree of knowledge and the tree of life have one root, which also has to do with the fact that Yahweh said, I am the first and I am the last. And he came first as the tree of life. Now he would manifest as the tree of knowledge. And the tree of life has to do with truth. That's why Mashiach said, I am the truth, the life, the way, and everything else that we see in scriptures regarding the first manifestation of the Almighty. And the truth is absolute, while the knowledge of good and evil is something that is abstract, in the sense that it is pretty much subjective to each person, what that person sees as good or evil. For instance, if we go to well, the dentist, we go because we have a problem with our teeth, for instance, and they have to take a tooth out that would be painful. So it would be regarded as bad, but it would be needed not to lose more uh, teeth, pretty much, or something perhaps worse or whatever. So it would feel bad, yet it is for a good reason, and that is the truth. So according to emotions and other things of this reality, the view of good and evil, once man ate of the tree, was put in the hands of men. So man started to choose what was good and what was evil, what was good and what was bad. Yet we needed the truth so that we could call everything by its name, pretty much, in the sense of knowing what is really good and what is really bad. Like in the example that I just mentioned, it is good to go to the dentist so that you don't have to lose any teeth, pretty much. And I was going to mention the hospital with something even harder, but the way hospitals are working nowadays with COVID and all of that, they're not really a good example of going there to get help. So a lot of things in this world feel bad. Just um like Mashiach said, that while we were in this world, we would go through affliction, because affliction is part of this reality, like Shlomo wrote it in the scriptures. So affliction is part of this reality, for it teaches us several things, amongst them obedience, It helps us rectify. It helps us gain wisdom, and many times trials, which are pretty much a synonym of tests, help us to grow and learn more about ourselves and about our weaknesses so that we may strengthen them through Mashiach. The point that good and evil was given in the hands of man since the time of man ate of the tree, which is key because we see it that in the first and second chapter of Genesis, Yahweh says that he saw what he made and it was good. And then, well, he said it the first day, the third day, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. And then he said that everything was good, like in a big way. So after man ate of the tree, the Almighty no longer calls anything good, because now man ate from the tree and man is the one saying what is good and what is bad. But by not having Mashiach, by not having the truth, they became, like scripture also says through the prophets, the ones that would call good evil and evil good. So Mashiach comes to rectify that, to give the truth regarding the knowledge given in the Torah. For the people that were following the Torah were doing it by the letter, not understanding really what the Almighty was saying. So Mashiach came with the truth to say what the letter was saying, to actually understand through the truth, which is absolute, what is really good and what is really evil, what is really good and what is really bad. For I repeat, and the point that I was making, the Almighty makes us go through trials and tribulations, allows it, because it's not all the time that we are being punished. It's not all the time that it is a consequence of our sin. Sometimes it is needed for whatever reason that the Almighty sees fit. And as we see in Romans 8:28, all things are for the good of those who love Yahweh. All things are for the good of those who love Yahweh. So something may be feeling very bad, awful, yet it is for our good. And that is the truth, which we needed to know, because a lot of people, when they go through something bad, just give up, just think that the Almighty doesn't love them anymore, just think that, well, a bunch of things that the enemy brings to the person through the flesh to take them away from the truth given through Mashiach. So it is very important that we have the truth, which is absolute, when we are going to judge according to the knowledge that the Almighty gives us in the scriptures, what is good and what is bad. For I repeat, that is why the prophets saw that in the end times, people will call good evil and evil good. So I saw one tree that was different from all of the rest, very large, beautiful, and magnificent. The tree of knowledge, of which if anyone eats, he becomes endowed with great wisdom. So we see there great wisdom. Great wisdom cannot be bad. The wisdom of good and evil is good if we have the truth. If we don't have the truth, then we are lacking. And that's what happened. And that's why there was death and error, sin, and everything else. So he becomes endowed with great wisdom. In the books of, well, the Gnostic books found in the Nag Hammadi library, we see that the Almighty sent through the Malachim, well, in a way, as we know, the Almighty is the one who wills pretty much what the Malachim do. Everything goes according to his plan, even if the Malachim think that they are doing their own will. For the Almighty even remains set apart from them, for they were created to represent the third heaven to us. So the third heaven is invisible. The second heaven is not, but it is invisible to this reality, just like dark matter, for instance. So the Gnostic books explain how wisdom, by the will of the Almighty, entered the tree of knowledge of good and evil, so that when Adam and Eve would eat, would receive wisdom from it. And there was a malach who saw and knew that wisdom entered that tree, and therefore did not want humans to eat of it. That malach being the one that has to do with matter, firstly known as Ariel. So, verse 4, it was like as tall as a fir tree. Its leaves resembled those of the carob tree, and bearing fruit that resembled extremely fine grapes. And its fragrance extended to a considerable distance. And I exclaimed, how beautiful is this tree and how attractive is its appearance. Remember what Adam and Eve, well, what Eve pretty much said to the serpent when the serpent approached her regarding eating of the tree. So here we see that they resemble extremely fine grapes. The grapes, obviously, they were not grapes, for it says they resemble. So they were like grapes, but the fact that they are mentioned obviously can give us a revelation regarding what scripture says regarding grapes. For instance, the many who will not accept the name and the doctrine of the two witnesses until it's too late and will have to die, but then they will be resurrected, for they will be the grapes in the harvest of Revelation 14, from whom the blood will come like the wine that will fill the bowls of the wrath of Yahweh, the seven last plagues. And the last, well, before I say that, Yahushua the first, when he came, he raised the cup, the third cup of redemption from Pesach, and said that that was his blood of the new covenant that he was shedding for the many. The blood of the new covenant that he was about to spill for the many. So the many are connected with the blood that is represented by the blood of the grapes, wine. So, like I always say, the first and the last manifest and confirm or fulfill all the prophecies that we see throughout scriptures. Some prophecies, the Messiah, Mashiach, Yahushua, fulfills them in a spiritual sense, and some he fulfills them in a physical or literal sense. While the last, the second coming, and I say that because that term is understood by a lot of people in a very wrong way. So I say that so that you understand that it is not like most people understand it. So the second manifestation, who would be called the last, the witness like Moshe, he comes and manifests the prophecies that the Messiah made in a spiritual way. The last will fulfill them in a physical way, and vice versa. So, for instance, one example is that Mashiach came from a virgin, a literal birth from a virgin. The last comes from a virgin congregation. A virgin in the symbolism of scriptures is a congregation, as we've seen throughout all the prophecies where something like that is mentioned. So a congregation is a woman. The true congregation is a virgin. The bad congregation is a whore, the harlot, the great whore of Babylon that we see in Revelation 17 and 18. So we see in Revelation 12 that the virgin, which is the congregation of Philadelphia of Revelation 3, will give birth to the one who will rule the nations with a rod of iron. Mashiach came as a Kohen Gadol, as a high priest. The last comes as king. First and last will unite, will become one, as we see in Zechariah 14:9 and in Ezekiel 37, the second half of the chapter. So I say all of that because we're seeing here how Mashiach spilled his blood for the many, which was represented by the wine made from the grapes. But when he did it on a tree, on a wooden cross, in order to give us eternal life. So he has a connection with the grapes that resemble the tree of knowledge, and also obviously with the tree of life. And like I was saying regarding the tree of knowledge being Torah, which was written by Moshe, and the witness like Moshe is the one who brings the knowledge of the true doctrine, the knowledge of the Father, etc. So we see a connection with both. The grapes represent, in the sense of what I always say, the few and the many represent the many. But in the sense of Israel, when they separated in the tribes of the north and the tribes of the south, it represents the tribes of the north, which were the many, the 10 tribes of the north, which are represented by the vine. While the fig tree represents the south, the tribes of the south. So it was like as tall as a fir tree. Its leaves resemble those of the carob tree, and bearing fruit that resemble extremely fine grapes, and its fragrance extended to a considerable distance. And I exclaimed, how beautiful is this tree and how attractive is its appearance. I'm going to go to Genesis for a second just to show what I was saying regarding the conversation between the snake and Chava, who is believed was originally called Chaya, but because of her sin, the Yud became a Vav, so she began to be called Chava. So it says, and the Nachash, which is the serpent, it says traditionally render the serpent was more crafty than all the lives of the field, which here lives would, they are doing this. So mostly I believe because of the people that get confused, some that go against scriptures, or some that may get confused because of the wording, snake and the beast of the field, as in not understanding the communication between animals and men that obviously would have been possible if the Almighty wanted it, like it could have been possible in the garden, of course. Yet most people see that as impossible. So they think that it would be very bad that if people were to see the way that the Almighty wrote it. Remember that Hebrew is a concrete language. So even when it will tell us about spiritual things, which is the main point that it's trying to make by changing those words, not changing them, but translating, for instance, beasts like lives, and writing Nahash in Hebrew, which I have no problem with that. I love it. Yet, because Nahash also has to do with an enchanter, somebody with wisdom, crafty. So the fact that it says Nahash in a more concrete way, in the physical sense, gives us the image of a snake going to speak to Chava. Yet, when we understand the meaning of Nahash, we understand that that could also mean an angel. For instance, Saraf, which are angels that have the shape of a serpent. So there are several ways in which this can be interpreted. And in a way, all the good interpretations, meaning the right interpretations, are all fulfilled, were all fulfilled in that beginning. So my point also was that I have no issue with believing that men could speak with animals while they were in the garden. Just like, for instance, during the Tower of Babel, because of the rebellion of humans, the languages were divided. It would be possible that because of the rebellion of Adam and Eve in the garden, their understanding of the sounds of animals was taken away, was confused. Because also it is said that Shlomo was able to speak to animals. So just wanted to mention that. So it says, and the Nahash was more crafty than all the lives of the field which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? So look how he puts the question. Is it true? So he's putting doubt in the mind of Chava. And one of the things that he's also doing is that he's making the commandment too hard to bear. When Yahweh said just one tree, of all the trees, just not eat of one tree. Here we see that he asked, the snake asked, do not eat of every tree. Well, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the Nahash, we are to eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, do not eat of it, nor touch it, lest you die. So first makes through the question the commandment way too heavy. So when she brings it down to what it is, it all of a sudden becomes minuscule, like it's not really that important. Plus, what she says is, do not eat of it nor touch it. Never do we see Elohim saying, don't touch it. Elohim only said to Adam, do not eat of it. So do not touch it was the first commandment of men, meaning was a commandment of Adam. As a husband, thinking that that would help, he told Chava, you better not even touch it. So do not eat of it. Elohim said, do not eat of it, but don't touch it, lest you die. So by saying that, we see that she didn't have the true commandment. A man had added something to the commandment of Yahweh. So it was making it half true, half false. Then, and the Nahash said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. You shall certainly not die. So this is one of the reasons why the snake is seen as giver of life, or one of the reasons why it is used as the symbol of doctors or the medical association, and well, and many other organizations use the snake on a pole, or the two snakes going for the wings that they lost because of this. So, and then Nahash said to the woman, you shall certainly not die. So here also we see something that the enemy does to fool people. Through the letter, has fooled people by giving commandments of men. And also because of the lack of truth, which comes through Mashiach, Yahushua, they have taken the letter to understand certain, something else. For instance, in this case, Yahweh, well, Elohim said, the day you eat of it, you will die. In fact, he said, the day you eat of it with death, you will die. So he used death twice because there are two deaths, the one in this reality and the second death, which is final judgment in Revelation 20. Also, he said, the day you eat of it, you'll die. He was already prophesying that Adam would eat of it. Yahweh knew that he would eat of it. The day you eat of it, you will die. But also, it is written in the letters of Peter that to Yahweh, Elohim, one day is as 1,000 years. So for humans to be told the day you eat of it, you will die, in the physical sense, according to the letter, that would be 24 hours and you die. But in reality, since the Malach that sent or came as a Nachash came from the second heaven, knew that one day are 1,000 years. So he said, you won't die, because he knew that they would continue to live for 1,000 years. A little bit less, as we know, but one day seen from the second heaven, which are 1,000 years to humans. So you shall certainly not die. For in the perspective of humans, they were thinking they would die the same day, 24 hours. But the Malach Nahash knew that and said, you won't die today, right? So I hope that's understood. For Elohim knows, and look how it says Elohim, it doesn't say Yahweh, because the title Elohim also fits angels. And one of the angels that fits is the one that didn't want really humans to have wisdom. For Elohim knows that in the day that you eat of it, your eyes shall be open and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. So this is important because it says not like, it doesn't say you shall be like Yahweh. It doesn't say that. So I hope that's understood. It says like Elohim, knowing good and evil. So Elohim is a title that is also used for judges. Why? Because judges are supposed to know good and evil in order to judge. So a malach didn't want humans to get to know that knowledge, to get to know, that knowledge, which was given to the malachim when Ariel, who became Samael, said he was the only Elohim, the only mighty one and creator, and he was shown otherwise when the light of Yahweh, Mashiach, before coming in the flesh, of course, before creation itself of man and this reality as we know it, appeared and told him that he was wrong. So he was put in the left as evil. And Hillel, a child of that Malach, was given the right as justice, for justice was made that day, that moment, that instant, for days were not made yet. And therefore, the Malachim knew what was good and what was, well, what was good and what was evil, or instead, in this case, what was justice and what was injustice. Being the Almighty above, having mercy as the truth. So the Father sent the Son to show the light to those Malachim, and the one of the 7 children of the first Malach that was put on the left saw the light and sang a song. So that's why he was called Hillel, which has to do also with praise, because that Malach was supposed to bring the praise of humans to the Almighty, yet then he took it upon himself to accept that praise for himself, pretty much. So he became a rebellious Malach. So there are 2 different, like I always say, there are 3 Satans, but in this case, Samael and Hillel, one represents everything that is evil in a plain, simple, clear way, while Hillel is pretty much that which appears to be good, but it's evil at the end, like the wolf in sheep clothing. That's why that Satan can appear as an angel of light, Hillel, Lucifer. Once he rebelled, because during Ariel's rebellion, he said that he was the only one that existed, which is something that the Almighty Yahweh used in Isaiah to speak about himself, because pretty much saying that which that fool Malach said, foolish Malach said, actually is fulfilled with the true Elohim, the true mighty one, as we see in Isaiah 45, well, 42 and up, pretty much. While Hillel knew already that there was a mighty one, the Most High, So that's why Hallel in Isaiah 14. So we find both in Isaiah. In Isaiah 14, we see how Hallel said that he would be like the Most High, for he knew there was a Most High. So in this case, he wanted to be like the Most High. And of course, he was wrong because he's a creation. And just by that fact, he can never, ever be like the Most High, who is the only being, if we can use that word, that has always existed, even before time, space, and matter, of course. So it said, for Elohim knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes shall be open and you shall be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. And the woman saw that the tree was good for food. So here's part of the point that I wanted to make. The woman saw that the tree was good for food. So she saw it as good. And for food, because she understood that she would know something that she didn't know at the moment, that it was pleasant to the eyes. It is important also to remember that the Almighty, before this happened, said it is not good for man to be alone. And that was not a mistake. So the Almighty Yahweh knew that Eve would be the one to eat. Adam would not, but if Eve, Hava would tell him, then he would. So that's why he made Hava. We see her saying that she saw that it was good. And the term good in scripture has to do with purpose. So there is a Jewish teacher that explains this story in a very different light, pretty much saying how, which I believe to be true, this part that I'm about to say, the Almighty knew that for his plan, we needed to go through this reality, through 6,000 years of a reality of darkness, pretty much evil, lies, and all of that, next to all the good that he gives us in this reality, of course. So it was needed for us to eat of the tree, but through the tree, death would come. So the Almighty could not give us death right away. He needed to put it as a choice. Because once it is a choice, we cannot blame anybody. It was our choice. Just like everybody, when he or she decides to sin, for the wages of sin is death. So if a person sins, deserves death automatically, according to the Torah, which is the knowledge of good and evil. It is sad that a person has to die, but it is the payment of going against the laws of this reality, this world. So humans needed to go through this experience in this temporal life. Yet the Almighty is the giver of life. So he could not give us death. He just made a tree that led to it and told us not to eat of it through a malach that had other intentions. And then man decided to do so because another malach used those intentions to fool the woman for her to eat. But the way this is written in the Torah tells us that Chava saw, like, even though we can say she was deceived in a conscious way, spiritually or subconsciously, she saw that it was good for her to eat. It was good for her to gain knowledge, even if that would mean death. So that's why it says that it was, and the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, that it was pleasant to the eyes. This reality has a lot to do with that. A lot of things are pleasant to the eyes, but once you taste of them, you find vanity. That's why the wiser the wisest man in the world, other than Mashiach, or I should say, before Mashiach came, Shlomo wrote about how everything in this reality is connected to vanity. Only the spiritual things can actually give us what we are seeking throughout life. So, and the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes. It was pleasant to the eyes, just like Hanoch is just saying. So we will go back to Hanoch in just a bit. And the tree, desirable to make one wise. Desirable to make one wise. Interestingly, in Malachi, we see that Mashiach Yahushua is called him whom you seek because of the salvation that he brings. And the last is called the desire of the nations. So, like I was saying, first and last is the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. And here is saying, in the tree desirable to make one wise. And she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. So, going back to Hanoch. So, it was like as tall as a fir tree. Its leaves resembled those of a carob tree, and bearing fruit that resembled extremely fine grapes, and its fragrance extended to a considerable distance. And I exclaimed, how beautiful is this tree and how attractive is its appearance. So we see that the same tree that Chava saw, and to the appearance of it, she felt that she wanted to eat from it. That is interesting because we see and I will have to go through also scriptures for it, in Isaiah 53, verse 2, for he grew up before him as a tender plant. And this is, just in case you didn't know, one of the main chapters in scriptures regarding the fact that Mashiach had to come to the world and die for our sins. Something with which Jewish people are told completely different. They avoid this chapter, but after Mashiach and their rejection of him, they began to say that this was talking about Israel, which actually doesn't make sense in the context, but I won't get into that. I'm just letting you guys know. So here we see how Mashiach, Yahushua, would come and die for our sins. Part of what it says is, for he grew up before him as a tender plant and as a root out of dry ground. We see that Mashiach is the root, as he himself said it several times. The root of David, not the branch of David. The root of David is the first manifestation. The branch of David is the second manifestation. So he has no form or splendor that he should look upon, that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should desire him. Because Mashiach is the tree of life. In truth, people don't like truth. People don't like the appearance of truth. So they avoid it. They don't desire it. So that's why they rejected Mashiach. Because among other things, he didn't appear as a good-looking person, because he is the tree of life, and truth hurts, and people avoid truth. So they rejected Mashiach, amongst other things, because he is the truth, because he didn't have splendor. So people didn't follow him, because people like to follow, most of the time, most cases, the masses follow people that are good looking. That's why they put good looking people in movies and in all of the things in TV. Because if they don't use good looking people, most people won't see those programs, and they won't get programmed to act like they want people to act. So the tree of knowledge looked good, because knowledge is good, wisdom is good, the good is good. And even to know evil is good, to avoid it, when we use the truth, of course. But when it comes to the truth, the world hates truth. So that's why Mashiach appeared in this way. He has no form or splendor that we should look upon him, nor appearance that we should desire him. But regarding the tree of life, regarding the tree of knowledge, we see that how beautiful is this tree and how attractive is its appearance. For instance, like the appearance mentioned regarding Joseph, who is the ancestor of the last, and also regarding David, even Moshe and Noah, their appearance is mentioned when their birth happens. And Mashiach said that the coming of the Son of Man, who is the last, would be like the days of Noah. So he would be like Noah. He is the witness like Moshe. He is the branch of David, and he is the descendant of Joseph. The only way that he can be the branch of David is through Mashiach, who happens to be the root of David. So genetically, meaning literally, physically, the last comes from the tribe of Joseph. But because of the fact that he accepts Mashiach, for he comes as the prodigal son, he becomes a Yahudi, for through Mashiach, in Mashiach, there is no Greek nor Yahudi, there is no free nor slave, there is no man nor woman. So, how beautiful is this tree and how attractive is its appearance? I hope that was, so it says, then pure Ramiel, the set apart Ramiel, the watcher and the set apart one who was with me, answered and said, this is the tree of knowledge, of which your ancient father and your aged mother ate, and who, obtaining knowledge, their eyes were open and understood themselves to be naked and were expelled from the garden. Something that I wanted to show to confirm another thing that I mentioned. So let me go back to Genesis 3. In verse 22 of chapter 3, it says, and Yahweh Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil. So even though the serpent was twisting what Yahweh Elohim said in order to make Chava disobey, this part was true, because Elohim himself says, see, the man has become like one of us. So man became like Elohim in the sense that now man knows what's good and what's evil. In the sense of the term Elohim as a judge. We should judge according to true judgment, as Mashiach says, not through appearances. Since Chava judged through appearances, she got caught up in death pretty much. So it says, see, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil. And now lest he put out his hand and take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. So this had to happen in the sense of Yahweh, because imagine all the evil people of the world if they had eternal life. While on the other hand, the Malach called Elohim did not want humans to be able to also have life throughout all this reality, just like the Malachim had or have life throughout this reality. But it is important to see how it says, and Yahweh Elohim said, see, the man has become like one of us to know good and evil. And now lets he put out his hand and take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. So Yahweh Elohim sent him out of the garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. So going back to Hanok. This is the tree of knowledge of which your ancient father and your aged mother ate, and who, obtaining knowledge, their eyes were open and understood themselves to be naked and were expelled from the garden. Understood themselves to be naked. So in the physical sense, they were naked, so they were like animals. Without knowledge, Adam and Eve were like animals, for they were acting like animals who have no clothes. In the spiritual sense, they realized that they were naked of the truth. That is Mashiach, who covers us with his flesh that he also gave during his sacrifice, which is represented by the clothing given to them by Yahweh after they tried to cover themselves with leaves, which represent the deeds of the flesh. When men try to attain heaven through commandments of men, pretty much false religion. So obtaining knowledge, their eyes were open and understood themselves to be naked. So once again, if they didn't know that they were naked, just like a dog doesn't know that he doesn't have clothes, in the sense that he doesn't think about it like he needs it, he doesn't see anything about it like bad. But when humans got knowledge, we realize that it is not good for humans to act that way, amongst other things, because we have an instinct, because we need to multiply, we need to have children. So because of that instinct, by using the intellect, we need to be able to control it. And one of the ways to control lust, to control what that instinct can lead us to, is by wearing clothing so that we don't see people's flesh and pretty much their sexual organs, which would make a lot of people go pretty much crazy by not having control of themselves, which is part of what comes to the Ruach HaKodesh. So they realized they were naked, something they didn't realize before. So that shows they were not in a very high place when it comes to understanding, even though they were in a very nice place, for it was paradise. So it was actually good that we got that knowledge. It's bad that we sin, but it is good that we got the knowledge. Now Mashiach came to give us the truth so that we can have also eternal life. But eternal life would only be received by those who actually believed in Mashiach as the truth. And that's how Yahweh gets rid pretty much of the people who rejected him, the people who only wanted the knowledge of evil in order to feel good while doing evil by not attaching to the truth, which is absolute, and only acting according to their feelings, which is pretty much part of the great problem in which, well, of society nowadays. The people are only acting according to their feelings, not according to the truth. Now you cannot say the truth because that may hurt some feelings. So it says, and their eyes were open and understood themselves to be naked and were expelled from the garden. So continuing with chapter 30. So chapter 32, verse 1. From there I went on towards the boundaries of the land, where I saw large beasts different from each other, and birds various in their countenances and forms, as well as with notes of different sounds. To the east of these beasts, I perceived the extremities of the land, where heaven rests. Look at that. How can heaven, according to what they say it is, can rest anywhere or anything like that? So the heavens, regarding, meaning Rakia, the firmament, which Yahweh Elohim made on when he separated the waters, needs a place to rest. And that's what Hanoch was seeing. For it is hard, like bitten metal, like the mirrors that they would make from brass with a hammer. That's how the firmament, rakia in Hebrew, that word has to do with working on metal with a hammer. So that means it is a hard thing. That's why the government was not able to go through it when they tried, like we saw the previous study. So to the east of these beasts, I perceived the extremities of the extremities of the land, where heaven rests, and where the gates of heaven open, where the gates of heaven open. Remember that there are 6 gates in heaven where the sun goes, well, through which the sun goes. And I saw the stars of the heavens rise forth. And I numbered the stories of each, my bad. And I numbered the sorties of each one of them as they proceeded out of the gate, and wrote them all down as they came out one by one according to their number, their names, their course, and position, and according to their season and month, as the envoy Uriel. Remember, Uriel means my light is the mighty one. So Uriel is connected or has to do with the lights, the luminaries. So that's why he's the one taking Hanoch to this part. Also, this would be pretty much like he was shown the constellations. He was told what each constellation is, what it represents, and all of that. Remember that Hanoch is the one who tells us how to, well, amongst obviously other things like the whole scriptures, which are the main part, but then Hanoch deals a lot with the calendar, and it seems like we are beginning to read that part, which is interesting. And I repeat, it has to do with the calendar. One of the reasons why they would take out this book from scriptures is because after the exile in Babel, the Jewish people, and I say Jewish because I'm referring to those who followed a Babylonian belief in several aspects. The Jewish people decided to follow a different calendar, that of the moon, which is the one that they still follow nowadays. But the calendar of Hanoch is different, as we will see eventually. And that would be one of the reasons why the book is taken out. Remember that Hanoch, as it is written in Genesis, walked with Elohim, and he was taken away, and he lived in this world for 365 years, which happens to be the cycle of the sun, 365 days. So Hanoch represents the son of righteousness, mentioned in Malachi 4:2, the prophet, who speaks about the prophet like Moshe coming like the son of righteousness in the end times. So Hanoch is a representation of the second coming of Yahweh to this earth as the witness like Moshe, the son of righteousness. That's why he was on earth for 365 days. Yet, as we will see eventually, Hanoch is told several times, or tells us, that the calendar must be of 364 days. And that's it, which makes the calendar impossible to be a lunar calendar, for the moon has 355 days in its cycle. So that's just kind of an introduction, because here we are seeing an introduction to that part of the time, the calendar. So as they proceeded out of the gate and wrote them all down as they came out one by one according to their number, their names, their course and position, and according to their season and month. Here, as we will see also afterwards, season goes before month. The season is when it comes to the priorities that we must take in account when it comes to counting the days of the year, meaning the calendar. Seasons go first, and then the position of the stars, meaning where the constellations are. I say that because in the past couple months, there was a ministry that came out with a calendar, and they were doing it the other way around. They were putting the position of the constellations ahead of the seasons. But the seasons begin with the equinox and the solstice, which have nothing to do with the position of the constellations. So their names, their course and position, and according to their season and month, as the envoy Uriel, who was with me, pointed them out to me. He showed and wrote them all down for me, including writing down for me their names, their regulations, and their operations, which is very interesting. That means that Hanoch could have left more knowledge written by Uriel himself that didn't come to us, or that Yahweh himself didn't allow to come to us for whatever reason. However, as you see here in the parentheses, the scroll of the revolutions of the luminaries of heaven are pretty much chapter 71 through chapter 79. Perhaps when we get there, hopefully we'll see all of those chapters in one study, so that, yeah, because I guess it will be important if they're all in one study. Hopefully it won't be too long. But the point is that that part of the book, which could be seen as a different scroll from 79 to 79, from 71 to 79, is said here to be what Uriel told Hanoch to write. But like I said, because of the fact that he mentions, well, names will be mentioned, yeah, but not of all the stars, not of all the constellations. So that's why I said that it's also possible that Hanoch left some more knowledge. But when it comes to this book that came to us, the knowledge of the luminaries is found in those chapters 71 through 79. Chapter 33, verse 1. From there I was transported to the northern boundaries of the land, and there I was shown great works. I saw 3 open gates of the heavens. This is interesting because it confirms what we were saying in the previous study, if we take into account, of course, the book of Hanoch as inspired. Because according to most people who believe in the flat earth, they believe that the north is the middle of the earth. So we just saw in the previous chapter that he was taken to the extremities of the land, and he saw where the heavens rest, where the firmament rests. And here he's saying that he was taken to a northern part of the boundaries of the land. So he's still in the boundaries of the land, but he is in a northern part. So meaning he's in the north of the boundaries of the land. But if the earth was like most say, when it comes to the flat earth, then there wouldn't be any boundaries on the north, because it would be the middle of all land. I hope that's clear. And if you see my eyes going this way instead of this way, it's because I'm seeing your faces. like if we were talking like in the same room. So from there I was transported to the northern boundaries of the land, and there I was shown great works. I saw 3 open gates of the heavens. Remember that there, well, I already mentioned there were 6, but we're about to see that also here, I guess. I saw 3 open gates of the heavens. Through each of them proceed the northern winds, and when they blow there is cold, pelting ice rocks, frost, snow, dew, and rain. So here is referring to the gates of the wind. When I mentioned the 6 gates, referring to the gates of the sun. I saw three open gates of the heavens. Through each of them proceed the northern winds. And when they blow, there is cold, pelting ice rocks, frost, snow, dew, and rain. That's why the north is connected to the winter. The north, when it comes to the calendar, the calendar, the winter happens during the last 3 months, which are connected with the three tribes that were in the northern part of the Mishkan or tabernacle. So around the tabernacle, Yahweh told the tribes to get their places, pretty much Yehuda as the main one in the east, Reuben as the main one in the south, Ephraim as the main one in the west, and Dan as the main one in the north. Dan is the one that begins in the calendar, as you can see, the last 3 months, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th, which are called, but this is since Babel, that's why I use this letter. Tevet, Shabbat, and Adar is what they would call them. So 10, 11th, and 12th are Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. So these three tribes are the ones connected to the winter, and these three tribes were located on the north. So the north and the winter are connected, as we are seeing in the book of Hanoch, that says that everything that happens in the winter comes from the north winds, pretty much. Through each of them proceed the northern winds, and when they blow, there is cold, pelting ice rocks, so hail, frost, snow, dew, and rain. If they proceed from only one of the gates, they blew mildly, but when they blew from the other two gates, it was with violence and calamity over the earth, because they blow strongly. So pretty much when the Almighty brings judgment through this means, using those winds, he opens the three gates of the north for the winds to bring calamity. And that's the end of chapter 33. Chapter 34, verse 1. From there I went to the western extremities of the land. So there are four corners of the earth, and that's why there are extremities of the land on the four corners: east, west, north, and south. From there I went to the western extremities of the land, where I perceived three gates of the heavens open, the same number of the gates and sorties as I had seen in the east. So three in the west, three in the east. Obviously, the sun goes through those three gates on the east, all the way to the gates on the west. Chapter 35, verse 1. Then I was transported to the southern extremities of the earth, where I was shown its three gates open to the southern wind, for the dew, the rain, and the wind. The winds from the south represent blessing, unlike the winds from the north. It is written in scriptures that evil comes from the north and blessing comes from the south. So these are different types of rains and dew. For the dew, the rain, and the wind. And from there I was transported to the eastern extremities of the heavens, where I saw three eastern heavenly gates open, which had smaller gates above them. So there are different types of gates, like I just mentioned earlier, in the heavens, just like there are windows that were open when the flood came. And from there I was transported to the eastern extremities of the heavens, where I saw three eastern heavenly gates open, which had smaller gates above them. Through each of these small gates passed the stars of heaven, Through each of these small gates pass the stars of heaven and proceed by a course traced for them towards the west, and that at every period. When I saw this, I blessed Yahweh, the sovereign of kabod, the sovereign of honor, worth, esteem, all the time. And I shall continue blessing the sovereign of kabod, who had made those great and splendid signs, in order to display the magnificence of his works to the malachim. So, as we read in Psalms regarding how his works show his magnificence, who had made those great and splendid signs in order to display the magnificence of his works to the envoys, to the spirits, and to the sons of Adam, and that these might honor that work and all his creation, that these might see the effect of his force, that these might praise the great labor of his hands and bless him forever. So it says, in order, who had made those great and splendid signs in order to display the magnificence of his works to the envoys, to the spirits, and to the sons of Adam, envoys, spirits, and men. Then, like the three heavens, the heaven of men, the heaven of the malachim, and the heaven of the spirits. For Yahweh is spirit. Then it says, and that these might honor those three, like the three realities, and many other things that are connected with the number three, and that these might honor that work and all his creation, that these might see the effect of his force, that these might praise the great labor of his hands and bless him forever. Yahweh made creation through 4 steps, just like his name has 4 letters, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The 4 steps are Atzilut, which means emanation, then Beriyah, which means creation, then Yetzirah, which means formation, and then Asiyah, which means pretty much action. So through those 4 levels, like the 4 letters in the name, like the 4 levels of interpretation of scriptures, like the 4 cherubim around the throne, like the 4 corners of the earth, like the 4 good news, Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John. In that order are the levels of interpretation, going from the most literal to the most spiritual, or to the most superficial to the deepest book. So, who had made those great splendid signs? The one, Yahweh Echad, in order to display the magnificence of his works to the Malachim, the spirits, and the sons of Adam. And that these might honor that work and all his creation, that this might see the effect of his force, and that these might praise the great labor of his hands and bless him forever. And that's how that chapter ends. In the translation used in this case, there was no chapter 36. So then we go to chapter 37. Chapter 37, verse 1. The vision which he saw, the second vision of wisdom. The second vision of wisdom, which Hanoch saw, the son of Yered, the son of Mahalalel, the son of Canaan, the son of Enosh, the son of Shet, the son of Adam. Here, just because, well, you guys know what I like to do with the names. Here we have Hanoch, Yered, Mahalalel, Canaan, Enosh, Shet, and Adam. So let me do something here. As you guys know, names are very important. They have a meaning, and Yahweh uses names not only to tell us the literal aspect of what he's telling us through the chapter, names of people or names of places, but he's also telling us an spiritual revelation through the meaning of the names. In this case, there's the name I want to see here. Is mentioned. This is not mentioned all of the ones in the genealogy of Hanoch, but in this case, Mehuyael means smitten by Elohim. But that would be Mehuyael. In this case, I think it's a little bit different. Let me see. Said, which means substitute. Enoch means human, mortal human. We have also Canaan, and the one from that line is Mahalalel, who came from Canaan. Then from him came Yared, which means he who descends. And then from him came Hanoch, which means dedicated one. But like I was saying, the one I was looking for was Mahalalel, but I mentioned one that came from Cain. The name was very similar. No, it wasn't the same name. I just had all the windows open. Mahalalel, which, interesting, I mentioned earlier, one of the chapters regarding the name Halel, how it had to do with praise. Halel. In this case, Halal is in the middle of Mahalalel. So he's pretty much the fountain of praise to the mighty one. So Mahalalel is he who praises the mighty one. Yeret means he who descends. Hanoch, dedicated, like I already said. Canaan, possession. Like Cain is a possession, Canaan is pretty much the long version of the name. So going back to Hanoch and seeing the names that are mentioned here one by one to see the message would be the dedicated one who descended from the heavens, dedicated for a mission, like Mashiach and the prophet like Moshe. The dedicated one who descended to bring the praise of the mighty one in order for him to possess humans, those who die. Through his mission, he gives life, of course. So that's why I go back. The dedicated one who descended to bring the praise to the true mighty one and make for the mighty one to possess humans by becoming the substitute of men. So look how through these names in this first part, we see a prophecy of Mashiach. And we can include the last because of the connection that I mentioned regarding Hanoch, but this is mainly having to do with Mashiach Yahushua. So the dedicated one who descended to bring the praise of the true mighty one for him to possess mortal men by becoming the substitute of men. So Mashiach came to pay for our sins by becoming our substitute. So then I continue. Hopefully that was clear. If not, you can ask in question 1. This is the beginning of the words of wisdom which I received to speak to and say to those who dwell upon the earth. Listen, men. Listen, men, from the beginning, and understand to the end the words of the set apart one, which I utter in the presence of the sovereign of spirits. It was good to speak it to those of yesteryear, but let not us obstruct the beginning of wisdom to those who come after. So Hanoch here obviously is written and talking about how this was said to those of the beginning of time, of that generation which was just mentioned, but it has also a message to those of the end times, us. And one of those messages could be said to be the one we received through the meaning of the names in the genealogy of Hanoch. It was good to speak to those of yesteryear, but let not us obstruct the beginning of wisdom to those who come after. Until the present, such wisdom has never before been granted by the sovereign of spirits, but I have received it according to my discernment, according to the pleasure of the sovereign of spirits. This is important because it is only if the Almighty has the will to give us understanding that we can understand the words of Hanoch, even if we have knowledge of how to read. So until the present, such wisdom has never before been granted by the sovereign of spirits, but I have received it according to my discernment, according to the pleasure of the sovereign of spirits. Thanks to whom I have received from him a portion of eternal life, which is beautiful. And that connects to what we know regarding Hanoch, that he lived 365 years, and then he was taken by Elohim. According to Judaism, he became a Malach, the Malach Metatron, which, according to a book called The Revelation of Zerubbabel, happens to be Michael. So if Hanoch indeed became a Malach, that would be how he received a portion of eternal life. Verse 3. And three parables have been communicated to me, and I have raised my voice to relate them to the inhabitants of the world. Also, the fact that it says that he received eternal life kind of contradicts what a lot of people believe in Christianity regarding the two witnesses being Hanoch and Eliyahu, saying that since they didn't die, they must come to die. But if they received eternal life already, then why should they die? And they used a verse taking it out of context, just in case you're thinking of it. So you can, of course, write any questions if that's one of them. So three parables have been communicated to me, and I have raised my voice to relate them to the inhabitants of the world. So, chapter 38, the first parable. When the assembly of the righteous shall be manifested, and the errant ones shall be judged for their errors, and be expelled from the face of the earth, when the righteous one shall appear. There, that parentheses, I mean, I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to have to explain because it's there and you are seeing it. So the last, who would be the manifestation of Yahweh on this earth during the first 3.5 years, will be during the sixth seal. But even before that, from the 6th chapter of Revelation in the first seal of Revelation. So this is according to an interpretation that the person that translated this book has. So when the assembly of the righteous shall be manifested, so the congregation of the righteous shall be manifested, and the errant ones, the sinful ones, shall be judged for their errors and be expelled from the face of the earth. When the righteous one shall appear in the sight of the righteous, of the chosen whose works depend on the sovereign of spirits. And when the light shines for the righteous, because the last comes as the Son of Righteousness, like Malachi 4:2. When the righteous one shall appear in the sight of the righteous, of the chosen whose works depend on the sovereign of spirits, Yahweh. And when the light shines, because the last will speak of Mashiach, who is the light. So through the doctrine or the teaching of the righteous one, the light will shine on this earth, according to the works of the sovereign of spirits. So when the righteous one shall appear in the sight of the righteous and the chosen whose works depend on the sovereign of spirits, and when the light shines for the righteous and the chosen who dwell on earth, where will the habitation of the errant ones then be? They won't be on the face of the earth. They will be outside the kingdom. That is true. So, and where shall be the place of rest for those who have rebelled, pretty much renegated, rebelled against the sovereign of spirits? It would have been better for them had they never been born, as we see in Mark 14:21, like when Mashiach told the disciples regarding Judas or Yehuda that it would have been better for him not to ever been born than to be the one who sold Mashiach, the reason why he was taken and then killed. Even though it was the plan of Yahweh for everything to happen as part of the prophecy for our sins to be paid, it was through the free will of Yehuda in this case that he was taken and killed. It was because of the free will of the Pharisees. So it was their decision to do the evil that was necessary to happen according to the will and prophecy that Yahweh gave us. So it would have been better for them had they never been born. Also, when the secret of the righteous one shall be completed, also when the secret of the righteous one shall be completed, seventh trumpet, which is true, because that's when the harvest happens. The two witnesses speak for 3.5 years, even through the sixth seal, all the way to the sixth trumpet. Then they are killed, and then the seventh trumpet is heard in the sense that the chosen few are taken. Here it has a comment, and it says, the secrets of the righteous shall be revealed. Correction based on context and scriptures. The secrets of the righteous shall be revealed. And it was translated at also when the secret of the righteous one shall be completed. And that would have to be connected with Revelation 10. The book of Revelation is called the Apocalypse because it is the revelation, like he's saying here, the secrets of the righteous shall be revealed. Once the chosen few are taken after the death of the two witnesses, everything that was prophesied would have been revealed already, like the mysteries that Paul spoke about, like the harvest being a mystery. So once the harvest happens, all mysteries would have been revealed. So when the secret of the righteous one shall be completed, or when the secrets of the righteous shall be revealed, then shall errant ones be judged, and irreverent men shall be expelled from the presence of the righteous and the chosen. Shall be expelled from the presence of the righteous and the chosen. From the presence of the many and the few, or it could be said from the presence of Mashiach and his people. Verse 4. From that moment on, those who possess the earth shall cease to be powerful and chosen anymore, as they do nowadays through democracy and many other ways in which pretty much they choose themselves. So from that moment on, those who possess the earth shall cease to be powerful when the Almighty will bring the last plagues after the seventh trumpet. From that moment on, those who possess the earth shall cease to be powerful and chosen anymore, and they shall not be capable of looking at the countenances of the pure ones, the set apart ones. They won't be able to look at the faces of the set apart ones, for it shall be the light of the sovereign of spirits that will shine on the face of the set apart one, of the set apart ones, the righteous and the chosen. So since the light of Yahweh will come from us, then people won't be able to look at us, because if they cannot look at the sun during noon, imagine if the sun is just a messenger, what it would be like to look at the creator, the king, of whom the Son is a messenger for. So we will remember that or in Hebrew, or which with the aleph is light, or with the ain is skin. The skin of our time is made of dust, clay. The skin of the coming time will be the covering of Mashiach, and Mashiach is the light, or so we will be covered by light. So we won't be, our bodies won't be made from particles of matter like dust. They will be made with particles of light. And the light of Yahweh will shine through us, and therefore those who are not part of Yahweh, children of Yahweh, won't be able to look at us directly. So from that moment on, those who possess the earth shall cease to be powerful. The Illuminati, pretty much, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and all of them, and many others, because there are a lot. From that moment on, those who possess the earth shall cease to be powerful and chosen anymore, and they shall not be capable of looking at the phases of the set apart ones, for it shall be the light of the sovereign of spirits that will shine on the face of the set apart ones, the righteous and the chosen. Then the kings and the mighty shall be destroyed and be delivered into the hands of the righteous and the set apart ones. Nor thenceforward shall any seek favor from the sovereign of spirits for them, because their mortal lives will have been met its end. So from that moment on, they won't be able to repent. They won't be able to seek the favor of the Almighty once they are judged and condemned, once they have died during judgment day, which will be, meaning final judgment, which is when the second death happens. So once they die for the second time, they won't be able to even address the Almighty anymore. It says here in verse 1 or 2, are the righteous the many and the chosen the few, or are they both referring to the few? Verse 1 or 2. When the assembly of the righteous shall be manifested, and the erring ones shall be judged for their errors and be expelled from the face of the earth, when the righteous one shall appear in the sight of the righteous, of the chosen, whose works depend on the sovereign of spirits. Yeah, it would be verse 2, because verse 1 could be taken as when the last appears before the few and the many, who are an assembly, even though if there are two parts of it, like the two parts of Israel, the north and the south. And then verse 2, it says, in the sight of the righteous, of the chosen, whose works depend. So it could be separated in the many and the few. And that's why the second part is the one that says, whose works depend on the sovereign of spirits, because the chosen few are only chosen to be saved because they are strengthened by Mashiach, who gives them the power to do the works of Yahweh, meaning his commandments. But obviously, since the many and the few will become one people, this can also be seen as when he talks about the sight of the righteous, of the chosen, talking about the same people. When the righteous one shall appear in the sight of the righteous, of the chosen, whose works depend on the sovereign of spirits. My point is that it is mainly referring to the chosen. It is mainly referring to those who will be righteous even during the first 3.5 years through the testimony, while the other ones will be in rebellion. And when I say testimony, I mean of the two witnesses. But the many who will be in rebellion during that time, in rebellion to the truth, will receive righteousness when they die by accepting the truth when it's too late. So in a way, they will become righteous in their death. So the main interpretation here would be speaking of the chosen, but we can include the many who will be justified when they receive righteousness through their belief in their heart that Mashiach is the Son of Yahweh and came to die for our sins. Chapter 30. 9, verse 1. And it shall occur in those days, that the sons of the chosen and set apart shall descend from the heights of the heavens, and their seed shall then be united with the sons of Adam. So here the translator writes Yahushua in a parenthesis. That was not originally in Hanoch, but this is the one of the interpretations, because it is a possible interpretation, but I'll explain the other one that would be taken if the parenthesis was not there. As we know, the seed of Yahweh is the word, and the word of Yahweh is the name Yahushua, according to Revelation 19:13. So the seed of Yahweh became our seed when we accepted it in order for us to give fruit, like Hebrews 13:15, that we must give sacrifice of praise, meaning the fruit of our lips that confesses his name. So to confess his name is fruit of our lips, which happens to be sacrifice of praise. Hebrews 13:15. So I will explain it first with the parentheses. And it shall occur in those days, at the end of everything, that the sons of the chosen, so we see that the chosen will have children, that the sons of the chosen and set apart shall descend from the heights of the heavens. So that would mean that, as we know, Mashiach said that after we are given the new bodies, we will be like the Malachim. We won't have to unite in marriage in order to have children, because we will be one, male and female, because that's what Mashiach came to do, unite, like when Adam and Eve had not been separated. So that's why it says, shall then be united, in a way. But like I was saying, the chosen few, by being like the Malachim, will have children in a different way than how humans do it, because humans now are in a body similar to those of animals. So we have to have sex in order to multiply like the animals. So, and it shall occur in those days that the sons of the chosen and set apart shall descend from the heights of the heavens, and their seed, meaning the word of Yahweh in us, Mashiach Yahushua, shall then be united with the sons of Adam. So finally, we will not only have the knowledge of good and evil, but also the truth, which is the seed of Yahweh, which will be united with the children of Adam, with humans, shall then be united with the sons of Adam. The other interpretation, if we don't take into account the spiritual meaning of seed and only the physical, which would be children, and it shall occur in those days that the sons of the chosen and set apart shall descend from the heights of the heavens, and their seed, which is pretty much what gives life, or through which Yahweh sends life to this reality, shall then be united with the sons of Adam. It's interesting that, like I said, right now, man has to put the seed in the woman in order for the woman to give birth to a son to that man. But if men, the female and the male are united, then the seed doesn't need to go anywhere, or doesn't need to be separated from the man in order for that person to give, to multiply, to have a son. So, and their seed shall then be united with the sons of Adam. Hanoch received the scrolls of the indignation and the wrath, and the scrolls of the anguish and the exile. So another interpretation that I wanted to mention here, when it says, and it shall occur in those days that the sons of the chosen, those who come from the chosen few, and those who are set apart because of their word, Mashiach, shall descend from the heights of the heavens. As I have said, the chosen few will have a connection with the heavens. They will be able to see Mashiach, who is at the right hand of the Father, while the many will not have access to the heavens, will remain on earth in Israel, living a great life, but only being able to see the second manifestation of Yahweh. So this could be pointing to that, because it says, and it shall occur in those days that the sons of the chosen and set apart shall descend from the heights of the heavens, and their seed meaning their children in that interpretation, which without taking Yahushua, shall then be united with the sons of Adam, who would be the many or the nations, who will be still humans, but won't have access to the heavens, but will have a union with the heavens through the chosen few. So the chosen will be connected with the many, and the many will be connected with the nations. The nations will serve the many will serve Yahweh through the last. The last will open, in a way, the door, who happens to be Mashiach, for the few, so that the few can see Mashiach and enter the heavens. So the few will be able to connect to the heavens, and therefore, if we take that interpretation that I was saying, their seed would come from the heavens, from the heights of the heavens, their children, and they will be united, connected with the rest of humans who will reside on earth and won't have access to heaven. Unlike nowadays, in which angels are not allowed to be united with humans. There are two different worlds, and Yahweh allows angels to come and do something, but that is their job, and they are not supposed most of the time to tell us that they are angels. So Hanoch received the scrolls of the indignation and the wrath, and the scrolls of the anguish and the exile. Never shall they obtain favor. The wicked, never shall they obtain favor. It says here, Priscilla, yeah, but it is so sad that a name can keep one from being a part of the chosen few. It's the name is just the beginning of it. It's not really because of the name. The fact that they don't accept the name is just a proof, a sign that there are a lot of other issues with their spiritual life, their belief, and all of that. Because if you actually are seeking the truth, you should accept the truth when it comes to you. You should research what you are told and not just follow tradition, not just follow emotion, feelings, like I have said earlier regarding the tree of knowledge. That has to do a lot with feelings, because people started to say what was good according to what made them feel good, which may not be true. So when they are told the truth regarding the name, they feel bad. So they think is bad, but they don't understand that that is how the tree of knowledge works. To, if they don't have the truth, the enemy, through those feelings, makes people stay away from it, because it is not pleasurable to the eye, like we saw earlier. So it is not a matter just of the name, it's just how it starts through the name. It's just a little thing, just a name that shows who the person really worships. When they reject it, they are saying that they just worship a different one, and is that simple. They don't want the one you're telling them, even though they claim to tell you that they reject it, that it is just the same. Literally, letters and moans is what keeps them from this massive blessing. So very sad. Yeah, like I said, no, it's not just letters. And like I have also said, the whole world will hear the doctrine of the two witnesses, so they will have a chance to be saved. So they will choose not to. Then it says, very controversial, but still something on my mind now that you're speaking of reproduction. Do you think that creating a child might be creating idols or false entities? No, no, not at all. Because then the Almighty would not have told us to multiply, be fruitful. The problem is when a person makes his or her child an idol, which happens a lot. The Egyptians did it, and that's part of the reason why the Almighty made the 10th plague, where the firstborn of every house died. So those who were the firstborn of the household would die because they happen to be worshipped by the Egyptians, amongst other things, amongst other reasons. So it is a problem when you put him in the place where the Almighty must be, because it is the Almighty who gave you the child. So you should love the Almighty for that gift, follow the Almighty for that gift to be kept in the best way possible. So, continue. So, never shall they obtain favor, said the sovereign of spirits. And a cloud then covered me. A cloud then covered me, and the wind lifted me above the surface of the earth, placing me at the extremity of the heavens. There I saw another vision. I saw the place where the set apart ones inhabit and the place of rest of the righteous. So listen how in the previous chapters he was taken to the extremities of the earth, the extremities of the land, where he saw where the heavens rest. But now he's using a different term. He's saying the extremity of the heavens. So if the heavens are a dome, and he's mentioning extremity of the heavens instead of the extremity of the land, it could be speaking about the center of it, in the sense that what says later kind of connects with it. There I saw another vision. I saw the place where the set apart ones inhabit in the place of the rest of the righteous. Because remember that the chosen few in Revelation 15, after the harvest, during the seventh trumpet, will be taken to the firmament, and they will sing above the firmament the song of Moshe and the Lamb. That's why I said that regarding the extremity of the heavens. There I saw another vision. I saw the place where the set apart ones inhabit in the place of the rest of the righteous. There I contemplated with my eyes their dwellings among the envoys, among the malachim of righteousness. So it is talking about those who will receive a place in the heavens when they receive their bodies during the seventh trumpet. There I contemplated with my eyes their dwellings among the envoys of righteousness and their places of rest among the set apart ones. As they were supplicating and praying for the sons of Adam, righteousness sprang up like water among them. Yahushua is the water of life, who brought righteousness to the forgiveness of sins. As they were supplicating and praying for the sons of Adam, righteousness sprang up like water among them, and favor was scattered on them like dew on the earth for centuries upon centuries. Mashiach is the early rain, which is the dew of the morning, which in the Exodus became the manna, or the man, which is the Hebrew, or manna, which is the heavenly bread. Mashiach is the heavenly bread who came like the early rain, which is the dew, to bring the favor of Yahweh to men. That's why from Adam to Moshe, death ruled the earth. Samael, the angel that I mentioned earlier. Then from Moshe to John the Baptist, the law and the prophets. But then through Mashiach came the truth and the favor. So as they were supplicating and praying for the sons of Adam, praying for the sons of Adam to receive forgiveness, pretty much, help, righteousness sprang up like water. Mashiach brought righteousness to men through his sacrifice by giving us forgiveness of sins. He is the water of life. And favor was scattered on them. Mashiach brought the favor. That's why we're forgiven. Like dew, the early rain, the heavenly bread, for centuries upon centuries. And once again, four things, like the four letters of the name Yahweh, the four corners of the earth. In that place, with my eyes, I saw the chosen one of righteousness and of the belief. Righteousness shall prevail in his days. Obviously, we could say it is talking about Mashiach. Remember that first and last are both manifestations of Yahweh. Yahweh says, I am the first and I am the last. So we could say the first and last are the same, yet they appear in two different times through two different wineskins. That's why Mashiach said, old wine in an old wineskin, new wine in a new wineskin. So one manifestation in the old time in a body for that generation, a new manifestation for the new time, future or present, since there's almost no future anymore, with a new body for this time. So they are pretty much two manifestations, two sides of the Father, Yahweh. I say that because I go from one to the other and all of that. So we could say, of course, that he's talking about Mashiach. Like I always say, what one fulfills spiritually, the other literally. In a way, Mashiach, Yahushua, did not need to be chosen, for he is the direct and only son of the Almighty Creator. So he came through a virgin. So he wasn't chosen like everybody else of the chosen few. He came from a virgin. So from that moment, even from conception, he was already the one that would bring forgiveness of sins. So we could say that the word was chosen to come and save us of our sins. But when it comes to the way most people understand being chosen, as in being in the world and following all of a sudden the Almighty, and the Almighty, after giving the call for him to follow the Almighty, Yahweh choosing him, right? It's because many are called, but few are chosen. So the term chosen there speaks of people who are in the world, who were in the apostasy, but then they are called, they come out of the apostasy, and they are chosen to be saved in the end times. So in that sense, the chosen one could be connected with the last, who comes as the prodigal son, but then is chosen to become the witness like Moshe, or the one that would lead the people to Yahweh through the way, which is Mashiach. So in that place with my eyes, I saw the chosen one of righteousness and of the belief. The fact that it says righteousness and belief connects with the last and the first, or first and last, depending on what aspect we speak of. Like I said, one fulfills it spiritually, the other one physically. So remember that the last is called Yahweh Sikenu, according to the book of Jeremiah. So he's called Yahweh, our righteousness. In that place with my eyes, I saw the chosen one of righteousness and of the belief. Righteousness shall prevail in his days. We know that we receive righteousness through Mashiach. So we were made righteous through our belief in Mashiach, who came 2,000 years ago. But we still see wickedness in the world, and it's one of the excuses that Jewish people use to say that Mashiach, Yahushua, is not the Messiah. Because the literal part that they are expecting will be manifest through the last in the end times. So that's how, once again, depending on how you see this verse, could be taken to mean the first or the last. So righteousness shall prevail in his days, and countless shall be the number of the righteous and the chosen before him forever and ever. Once again, the many and the few, the two flocks mentioned in John 1, when Mashiach speaks of being first and last by saying that he is the door and the good shepherd. Countless, because the many will be countless when they are in front of the throne. And well, even the 144,000, we are given the number, but imagine having 144,000 in front of you and thinking of counting them. So countless shall be the number of the righteous and the chosen before him forever and ever. I saw the residence under the wings of the sovereign of spirits, which the Yahudim or the Jewish people would call the Shekinah, the presence of the Most High. I saw the residence under the wings of the sovereign of spirits. All the righteous and the chosen shall shine before him like scintillation of fire. Their mouths shall be full of blessings, and their lips shall honor the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits. So even if we mention here the many as being the righteous, if we include the many as being the righteous, we see how once they are resurrected by giving them righteousness, they will honor with their lips the name of Yahweh. Also, if we include the many when it comes to the heavens that are being mentioned here, remember that Hanoch was not taken to the highest heaven. He was taken to the second heaven because Mashiach himself said nobody has gone to heaven, only the Son of Man who is in heaven. He said that in John 3:13 while on earth. So there he was saying that he was on earth while the last was in heaven. Now the last would be on earth while the first is in heaven at the right hand of the Father. So their lips shall honor the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits. Remember that the temple has three parts. The most set apart place, which is the smallest part, which represents the third heaven. The set apart place, which is the house pretty much. The most set apart place would be a room, the room of the couple, the Messiah and the bride. So the chosen few will gain access to the most set apart place. The many righteous will gain access to the set apart place, which can be connected to the second heaven, and therefore we could speak of the many being able to enter the second heaven, but not the third, which is the highest and the most important one when I mentioned regarding the part that each of the groups that will enter the kingdom of Yahweh will receive. Because then we have the courtyard, the third part of the temple, which represents the nations who will be around Israel on earth for eternity. So it says, the sovereign of spirits, and righteousness and the truth shall not fail before him. Once again, the truth is Mashiach the first, righteousness connected to the second manifestation, the last, because he is Yahweh, our righteousness, Yahweh Sikain. Verse 8, there was, the 8. There was I desirous of remaining. He wanted to remain in that spot. And my spirit longed for that habitation. There was my inheritance. Thus and how had been established for me before the sovereign of spirits. At that time I praised and extolled the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits, with blessing and praise, because he has destined me for blessing and honor according to the good pleasure of the sovereign of spirits. My eyes observed that place for a long time, and I blessed him and praised him, saying, blessed is he, and may he be blessed from the beginning and forever. Before him is no resignation. He knows since before the world's creation what is forever and what shall be from generation to generation. Those who do not sleep bless you, meaning those who are not dead. For remember how death is compared to sleep, and David, the king, speaks of how he wants to remain alive so that he can bless Yahweh. Those who do not sleep bless you. They stand before your worth, blessing, honoring, and exalting you, saying, set apart, set apart, set apart. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh is Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits. He fills the entire world with spirits. There my eyes look there at all those who do not sleep, standing before him and bless him, saying, also, in this case, those who do not sleep, I will see it coming in a moment. Those who do not sleep would be the Malachim, those who are around him, as we see in the book of Revelation, and continually say, set apart, set apart, set apart, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So they do not sleep ever, for they are not in our reality in which we need to sleep. So, well, the comment says, these who do not sleep but stand before him are the Seraphim, the Cherubim, and the Ophanim. Three types of Malachim. The Seraphim are serpents of fire. The Cherubim have four different shapes: ox, eagle, lion, and human, and they cover the throne. And Ophanim are wheels that are next to the Cherubim. So they are Malachim, three types of Malachim that don't need to sleep, so they continually praise Yahweh. There my eyes look there at all those who do not sleep, standing before him and bless him, saying, blessed be you, and blessed be the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits, for the ages of the ages. Then my view was changed until I was incapable of seeing them. So it could mean that he was taken somewhere else, but the way it's said is kind of like they disappeared from his sight, as when one comes out of a trance or out of a vision that Yahweh gives, like the prophets. Also, like if we were given the ability to see with our eyes the spiritual, and all of a sudden it's taken away. So, if when they found the book of Enoch was Yahweh mentioned, and then later it got perverted also with the false name. If I'm understanding, let me see, I found the book of Enoch was Yahweh mentioned, and then later perverted also. Yeah, that will be for sure. For sure. And if, as we believe, the book of Enoch comes from the real Enoch, then that would mean that what Genesis says regarding Enoch calling for the first time on the name of Yahweh would mean that they were given the name at that moment. Hanoch had it, he wrote it, but then they didn't accept the book and changed through the scribes the name of the Most High. And as we know, Yahweh said that his name was not given to Abraham, Yitzhak, nor Jacob. He doesn't mention anybody before Abraham. So the name could have been lost after Hanoch, mainly because of the Tower of Babel, for instance. But even before that, because of the flood, a lot of knowledge was lost during the flood. And then Nimrod made it worse with the Tower of Babel, and confusion was over the earth. And that's when Abraham pretty much was born. And that's why Abraham didn't have the name of Yahweh. In fact, Abraham pretty much had to discover Yahweh all over again. Abraham had to start looking for the Most High until the Almighty revealed himself to him, but through the name El Shaddai, through the titles El Shaddai. And then Moshe asked for the name of the Almighty, and he told him the name Yahweh. So, great. So going back to chapter 40, verse 1. After this, I saw thousands of thousands and 10,000s of 10,000s, and an innumerable and multitude impossible to calculate, which are sustained before the sovereign of spirits. And on the four sides of the sovereign of spirits, I saw four presences different from those who do not sleep. So in that case, those who do not sleep would be the rest of the Malachim. Now he is mentioning the Cherubim. They don't sleep either, but they are different from the rest of the Malachim, which is the point. And on the four sides of the sovereign of spirits, I saw four presences different from those who do not sleep. And I learned their names, because the Malach who goes with me let me know them and revealed to me every secret thing. Then I heard the voices of those four presences and how they pronounced praises before the sovereign of Kabod, the sovereign of worth. The first voice blessed the sovereign of spirits for the ages of the ages, which is the lion. The lion, represented by Yahudah, who speaks to Yahuhanan in Revelation to open or to see when the Lamb opens the first seal. So the first voice, that of the lion, the shape of the lion, blessed the sovereign of spirits for the ages of the ages. The second voice, which is connected to Reuben and the face of a man. The second voice I heard blessing the chosen one, which is interesting because it blesses the one, the son of man. Reuben means behold the son. So that's why the face of a man, which is in the south, is the second voice I heard blessing the chosen one. And the chosen ones who depend on the sovereign of spirits. So the last and the chosen few, blessed by the cherub with the face of a man. The third voice, which is connected to Yahusef, Ephraim, and therefore to the ox. The third voice I heard praying and interceding for those who dwell upon the earth that supplicate by the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits. The ox is connected to being a servant. Obviously, the man to being a human. The lion to being a king. That's why the lion blesses the sovereign of spirits, the king of spirits for the ages of the ages. The second voice I heard blessing the chosen one, the human, the son of man, and the chosen ones who are also human, who depend on the sovereign of spirits. The third voice, the ox, the servant, I heard praying and interceding, so serving, for those who dwell upon the earth that supplicate by the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits. Those are the chosen, those who actually use the name of Yahweh. The fourth voice, which is the one connected to Dan, and therefore with the eagle. The fourth voice I heard expelling the adversaries. Interestingly enough, Dan is expelled from the 12 tribes of the chosen few of Revelation 7. And the eagle represents angels. Therefore, the fourth voice I heard expelling the adversaries, meaning the fallen angels, and preventing them from entering into the presence of the sovereign of spirits to accuse the inhabitants of the earth of his. So the fourth voice expels the fallen angels that bring accusations against humans before the throne of Yahweh. So the fourth voice I heard expelling the adversaries and preventing them from entering into the presence of the sovereign of spirits to accuse the inhabitants of the earth of his. After this, I asked the envoy of Shalom, the Malach of Shalom, who went with me and explained all that was concealed to me, saying to him, who are those four presences which I have seen and whose words I have heard and written down? He replied, the first, the compassionate and very patient, is Michael. So look how in this case, it is connecting the lion to Michael. So pretty much that would be the reason why in the comment of the previous chapter, it mentioned the cherubim amongst those who do not sleep. Now, by saying Michael is talking about four malachim who are above all malachim. And those four malachim who are above all malachim and are about to be mentioned are represented by the four cherubim that are around the throne that I just mentioned, like the lion, the ox, the lion, the human, the ox, and the eagle, in that order. So, but this is extremely important because I mentioned how Yehuda is the lion, is the tribe that is connected to the lion, and the lion is the voice that tells Yahuhanan to see when the first seal is open. And when the first seal is open is when the second manifestation of Yahweh on this earth happens. So Michael is the first seal, like I have said many times. Is Michael manifesting on this earth as he was prophesied on Daniel 12:1, when it said that Michael would stand on this world, would stand in the end times to protect or to fight in favor of the chosen few. So we are seeing here another connection with Michael manifesting as the last in the first seal, for it is the lion of the east of the tribe of Yehudah, the one that tells Yahuhanan to look at the rider of the first horse, the white horse, the one that brings spiritual warfare. So it is a good thing, even though most Christians claim that that is the Antichrist, because the last comes as a thief in the night. So they will claim he's a thief. They will claim he's false. So those who do not sleep, and I learned their names because the angel who goes with me let me know them and revealed to me every secret thing. Then I heard the voices of those four presences. I already settled that. We were on verse 9. He replied, the first, the compassionate and very patient is Michael. Here he's saying the first because it is talking about those four, right? It is not saying that Yahushua is Michael, because when I always say first and the last, Yahushua is the first, right? He's talking about those four around the throne. The compassionate, because he helps the people of Yahweh, and very patient is Michael. The second is he who is assigned over the sicknesses of all of the wounds of the sons of Adam. That's why it was connected with Reuben. See the man, see the son, and the face of the man. And this is Raphael. Rapha means healing. He healed. So the mighty one of healing. The second is he who is assigned over the sickness of all of the wounds of the sons of Adam is Raphael. The third who is assigned over all the powers is Gabriel. Gabriel, the power of the mighty one, the strength of the mighty one. And there are other translations. The third, which would be connected with Ephraim, the ox, who is assigned over all the powers, those powers that serve the Almighty. The third, who is assigned over all the powers, is Gabriel. And the fourth, that would be connected with the eagle, that represents a malach, who is assigned over the hope of those who will inherit eternal life, is called Suriel. Suriel. When it comes to since I mentioned the one with Michael, the other three seals that are connected with the three sides of the throne, the other three sides, those three seals are bad things that will happen on this earth. There are plagues. But in what way would they be connected with each of these malachim? The second seal, which is connected here with Raphael, the second seal is when they will be given a sword to the rider of the red horse in order to spill a lot of blood. So he will bring literal death. Raphael is the one who heals. So you see the connection in the sense of the opposite will happen on earth than what Raphael was sent to do. The third, who is assigned over all the powers, is Gabriel. Gabriel would be connected to the third seal, which is when hunger will strike the earth. Who is assigned over all the powers is Gabriel. There will be world hunger, world famine, mainly for the word of Yahweh. And the fourth, that will be the fourth seal, when the death of the second and third seal will multiply, and a fourth of humanity will die. Who is assigned over the hope of those who will inherit eternal life. So that's the connection with death, once again in the opposite. For obviously those malachim are good malachim, but the plagues that will happen on this earth will be bad. So the connection is to the opposite of what the angel actually represents. Raphael brings healing, yet the world needs to go through death. Gabriel brings messages, as we see throughout scriptures, from the power, and gives power to those who listen to those messages, yet people will be hungry for the truth, for the true message. Suriel is my rock, is the mighty one. So it is the one that is supposed to give hope for eternal life to humans, yet because of their sins, they deserve death and hopelessness, sadly, through the plagues. So, according to the English translation, instead of Suriel is Peniel, which would be the face of Elohim, the meaning of it. Verse 10, these are the four envoys of the sovereign of spirits, and their four voices that I heard in those days. Chapter 41, verse 1. After this, I saw the secret of Yahweh and how the kingdom is divided, and of how mortal men actions are weighed there in balances. There I saw the habitations of the chosen ones and the dwelling of the set apart ones. And my eyes saw when the errant ones were expelled from there because they rejected the name of the sovereign of worth. So this is according to one of the two translations, at least this part, name of. There I saw the habitations of the chosen ones and the dwelling of the set apart ones. And my eyes saw when the errant ones were expelled from there because they rejected the name of the sovereign of worth. And they could not stay there because of the punishment which proceeds against them from the sovereign of spirits. And they could not stay there because of the punishment which proceeds against them from the sovereign of spirits. One thing that is interesting, and this is not exactly what is being said there, but it could be in a way understood, is that even if the next life was for everybody, meaning even the sinners, since they reject goodness, obedience, truth, and so forth, so much, for instance, to be in the presence of goodness, getting knowledge and learning truth, like for instance, if we were to study scriptures eternally, that would be hell for them. So how it says here, and they could not stay there because of the punishment which proceeds against them from the sovereign of spirits. Even if they wanted to, they cannot stay there because that's their punishment. And in a way, my point was that a person may enter the congregation in the sense that when we do it in with people physically, mainly the Spanish ministry, and there are people who just cannot stand the doctrine for, well, we do like 3 hours, right? Sometimes more. And they are done after like 30 minutes, in the sense that they cannot really think of having so much time spent on scriptures, on getting to know the Almighty. And that is sad. And those are people that supposedly are actually seeking. Imagine those that are not. They are not doing so because they think it is boring. And obviously, if they think of Mass, if they think of the Catholic way of doing, well, yeah, what they do, because they don't even read scriptures. And if they do, they don't explain it. And similar to Christianity, sadly, yet they do a little bit more of a, well, dancing and all of that to keep people happy, to move their feelings, as I was saying regarding the tree of knowledge. Verse 2, there too my eyes looked at the secrets of the lightning and the thunder, and the secrets of the winds, how they are distributed as they blow over the earth. The secrets of the winds, of the dew, and of the clouds, the place from which they issued forth, and from where they saturate the dust of the earth. There I saw the confined space from which the winds are distributed, the store of the pelting ice rocks and the wind, the store of the fog and the clouds that flutter over the earth since the beginning of the world. And I looked at the space of the luminary orb and of the moon. I looked at the space of the sun and the moon. From hence they proceed, and towards where they return. So look how the sun and the moon are similar, and they go over our heads throughout their cycles and through the same gates, the same places. So they are at the same distance, yet we are told completely, well, something completely different. And I looked at this space, at the space of the luminary orb and of the moon, from hence they proceed and towards where they return in their splendid return, and how one became more splendid than the next, since the sun was given 7 times more light than the moon. Their magnificent orbit and how they do not leave from it and loyally maintain the oath which they have made to each other. So Yahweh made them, and they made an oath to maintain their cycles. They do not leave from it. Only humans actually leave from oaths. Only humans actually reject the word of Yahweh, sadly. The rest of creation follows his word to the T. So, and how they do not leave from it and loyally maintain the oath which they have made to each other. The luminary orb proceeds forth first. So it is first when it comes to the calendar, and follows its path in obedience to the command of the sovereign of spirits, whose name is potent for the ages of the ages. After this, I saw the path, both the concealed and the visible path of the moon, as it completes the circuit of its path in that place day and night. And one maintains a position with the other before the sovereign of spirits. Remember that the earth is the footstool of Yahweh and the heavens are his throne. So he's sitting, looking down at the sun and the moon going above humans. So, and one maintains a position with the other before the sovereign of spirits. They give recognitions and praise without ceasing, because for them given acknowledgement is rest. This is beautiful. And this is pretty much what we will receive, which is wonderful. And it is really what we should have already. For instance, it is very common for me to be very tired before studies. But right when I start reading and teaching, all of a sudden I could go for hours. So seeking the presence of Yahweh should give us actually rest. It should not be like the work of this reality, which is the opposite. They give recognitions and praise without ceasing, because for them, given acknowledgement is rest. So by them giving acknowledgement of the power of the Most High is how they receive rest. So imagine how beautiful that the more we seek the Almighty, the better we feel. And that is true now, but there are a lot of things that go against that reality. So a lot of people don't see it, even when they believe. But the more we get to that reality that Yahweh has prepared for us, the more we seek the Father, the better we will feel. The luminary orb turns frequently to bless or to curse. This is very important. Remember that I have mentioned a couple things. One, that in Leviticus, well, not only Leviticus, but mainly in the law, we see how when a person has an impurity and he goes through the ritual to become pure, he becomes pure at the sunset. When the sun sets, he becomes pure. Why? Because the sun acts like the accuser. That's why Halel, the accuser of this time, is represented by the sun. That's why the sun falls, because Halel will fall in Revelation 12 at the end of this reality, just like the sun falls at the end of every day. So the sun curses or accuses those who are impure. When he's going above their heads, is as Halel going and saying that one has a sin, that one has a couple sins, and so on and so forth. That's why also I have said, although the whole Shabbat is 24 hours, I want to make that clear. When they ask me what is the most important part of the Shabbat, obviously the 12 hours of light, because that is also the time where people work. So if Shabbat is not to work, the main would be the light, the 12 hours of light, when the sun would be accusing those who are doing work. And I have already explained regarding Shabbat. I don't want to really get into it, but you can read Romans 14, Isaiah 58 to really get what the real Shabbat is, not like they have taught it according to commandments of men and the letter, of course. So the luminary orb turns frequently to bless or to curse. Also the reason why I always say like a fast should be like for the time that you choose before the Father. I tend to think that a whole day should be the minimum when you're really trying to do a fast, but depends on the person. Of course, there are people who cannot last 6 hours without eating something. So obviously it's part of the sacrifice. So the 24 hours would be the best. But if you, for whatever reason, health reasons or whatever, just starting, if you just want to do 12 hours, it should be the 12 hours of light, pretty much to be blessed by Yahweh through the sun that will see you fasting. So the luminary orb turns frequently to bless or to curse. And the circuit of the moon's route is blessing for the righteous and darkness for the errant ones. And the circuit of the moon's route is blessing for the righteous and darkness for the errant ones, which is interesting because the moon has a cycle in which it becomes dark, and through the 29 days, it starts dark and then it gets full of light and then it becomes dark again. So it has that part for the righteous and the other one for the errant ones, for the sinners. Is blessing for the righteous and darkness for the errant ones. The light of the moon, which is different than the light of the sun, brings good things for the plants. Some plants give fruit through the light of the moon, as scripture says, and as a lot of people know when they grow those plants. While also the moon gives some people some issues, lunatics, for instance, or there are people who get pain in their bones or in their scars, or women during their period is a little bit harder when is the full moon, for instance. So, and the circuit of the moon's route is blessing for the righteous and darkness for the errant ones. In the name of Yahweh, who has separated light from the darkness, as we see in Genesis 1, and as it can be seen represented by the moon, who goes from darkness to light and then back to darkness to begin again. During the 7th day of the moon cycle, the moon is half light, half darkness. So, who has separated light from darkness and has sorted the spirits of men and has strengthened the spirits of the righteous in the name of his own righteousness. For no malach prevents this, neither is any power capable of preventing it, because he appoints a judgment for all of them and judges them all in his own presence. Chapter 42, verse 1. Wisdom, and it says here, compare wisdom to Yahushua, compare iniquity to the lie. All right, as we know, Yahushua came to bring wisdom. Wisdom, like I have said, is pretty much the counterpart of Mashiach as the truth. But it is through Mashiach that we receive wisdom, which happens to be the Ruach HaKodesh. Because through the name of Mashiach, as John 14:26 says, we receive the Ruach HaKodesh. So through the confession of Yahushua, the Ruach comes to us. Through the confession of the truth, we receive wisdom. So wisdom came through Mashiach the first, which is the first pillar at the entrance of the temple, the one named Yakin. The other pillar is Boaz, and it represents the last, the second manifestation, who brings understanding. So through wisdom and understanding, we receive knowledge, the knowledge of the Father, of course, the true knowledge. So that's why wisdom is compared to Yahushua or connected to Yahushua, just as iniquity connected to the lie, which would be the false Messiah, the spirit of error. So wisdom finds not a place on earth where she can dwell. So you see how it says she, because chokmah in Hebrew, wisdom, is feminine because it's the ruach. The truth would be the male part. Wisdom finds not a place on earth where she can dwell. That is part of what we were talking about, how people are so far away from seeking the Almighty and even farther away from seeking the Almighty as something nice and good and that can help them. And that is because wisdom finds not a place on earth where she can dwell. People don't want real wisdom. They only want wicked wisdom, the evil wisdom of this reality that may help them to attain what they want without actually obeying the rules of this reality that Yahweh gave us in the Torah. So that is also why we see that when Mashiach came, he said that the Son of Man had no place where he could rest his head. So wisdom finds not a place on earth where she can dwell. Therefore, her dwelling is in the heavens. That's why if we want wisdom, we must seek the Father who is in the heavens, because the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. So when we fear the heavens, wisdom comes to us. And when I say heavens, meaning the Father who is the third heaven. Wisdom finds not a place on earth where she can dwell. Therefore, her dwelling is in the heavens. Wisdom went forth to dwell among the sons of Adam, but she did not find a place. Remember how we saw earlier that wisdom was in the tree of knowledge. That's why when Adam and Eve ate, they received wisdom of good and evil. So wisdom went forth from where? From the Father, from Yahweh, when it came down, when she came down, to dwell among the sons of Adam. But she did not find a place because men reject wisdom. Proverbs 9:1, we'll read it. It says, wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out its 7 columns. As in the 7 days in which Yahweh made through wisdom all creation, amongst other things. So that was the one that they mentioned here, but I'll continue. Wisdom went forth to dwell among the sons of Adam, but she did not find a place. Then wisdom returned to her home and has taken her seat among the Malachim. That is interesting because wisdom could not enter until Mashiach came to die for sins, the third heaven. So it's interesting that it says that she took a seat among the Malachim. Wisdom returned to her home and has taken her seat among the Malachim. But iniquity has gone out of its caves after her return, has found those who did not seek her and resided among them. But iniquity has gone out of its caves. So it speaks of wisdom coming out of a home, like a person. iniquity coming out of a cave like a beast, evil. But iniquity has gone out of its caves after her return, has found those who did not seek her, and resided among them. Like the rain in the desert, and like the dew in a thirsty land. So sadly, when it comes to iniquity, this world is thirsty for it. Iniquity is like rain in the desert when it comes to this world being the desert, and iniquity the rain, of course. So there we see the comparison between wisdom and iniquity, that which comes from the Son of the Almighty and that which comes from the false Messiah, the spirit of error. Pretty much that which comes from the Son of Man and that which comes from the beast. Chapter 43, verse 1. Then I saw other comets and stars of the sky, and I saw how he called them all by their names and that they paid heed. I saw how they were weighed in a righteous balance according to their light, their sizes, and the day of their appearance. Look how he mentions comets. They have a time in history in which they can appear. And I mean, like the Halley comet, for instance, every now and again it appears. They already know the size, every 75 to 76 years. So the Almighty made this, which pretty much, amongst other things, represents a fallen angel. And when it appears, it brings plagues to the world. It is known, and you can check it, that every time that it has appeared in the heavens, certain bad things have happened on earth that are similar to the other times when the same comet has appeared in the firmament. So it is different than how they tell us, of course, but we see here that he mentions even the comets, and it says, I saw how they were weighed in a righteous balance, meaning that they have Yahweh made them all different, pretty much. According to their light, they give different light. Their sizes, they're all not the same. And the day of their appearance. And how their movement generated brilliance. And I saw their path was according to the number of the Malachim. So that's why the comets and the stars represent the Malachim, the messengers, the envoys. And how trustworthiness is kept among them. The stars and the comets are trustworthy, for they appear only when Yahweh told them to appear. Then I inquired of the envoy who proceeded with me and explained to me secret things. What is this? He answered, the sovereign of spirits has shown you his parable. These are the names of the set apart ones who dwell upon the earth and believe in the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits, forever and ever. These are the names of the set apart ones. The names that were mentioned were Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Suriel, who dwell upon the earth and believe in the name of Yahweh, the sovereign of spirits, forever and ever. Chapter 44, verse 1. Another thing also I saw respecting comets, how some stars arise and become comets, and are not capable of forsaking their new form. So there are some stars who, when they arise, become comets. So Yahweh turns certain stars into comets. And that would be, once again, to represent the angels who rebel against the Almighty and therefore become something different that seems to be falling from its place. like comets, are different than stars, and are not capable of forsaking their new form. Just like the Malachim who came down, they were not capable of going back to heaven. They were not capable of receiving favor, salvation, forgiveness of their sins. So that's how that chapter ends and that parable. So we'll leave this other parable for next week.